Welcome, everybody, to the Avengenerds podcast, where we talk Marvel, DC, Star Wars, and more. I'm your host, Peyton, and with me is my co-host, Torrin.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. We have a great show for everybody this week. We are discussing who is the best Spider-Man. Who is it? Is it Tom Holland? Is it Tobey Maguire? Is it Andrew Garfield? We'll be getting into it. We'll be talking about everything, really. We're going to talk about the pros, the cons of each one. What's the fair complaints? What's the stupid complaints? Who's most comic accurate? Etc., etc., etc. We're going to be getting to all that. But we also have a great show as far as news goes. Pretty stacked week of news. It was pretty good. We're going to be discussing, some stuff regarding James Gunn, a new Star Wars game announced, Sonic, No Way Home stuff again. And speaking of No Way Home, Torrin, the day we're recording this, we're less than a week away from the movie, man. And by the time this comes out, it's only going to be a few days away.
I know, man. I'm so excited for this.
I'm so scared.
Also, just for a quick disclaimer, if you're planning to watch a movie, you got your tickets, do not go on social media if you do not want to get spoiled, because things are leaking so much as if they weren't leaking already. But yeah, just be on the lookout for that. It's literally less than a week away and stuff is still getting leaked. And it's like, why? Just wait. I just don't understand.
Yeah.
Wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, the leaking, but I mean, I don't know, man. Sony security is something else. But yeah, so let's get into the news real quick. Let's start off with some miscellaneous news. The Sonic 2 trailer dropped. And
that was a good trailer, man. I love it.
It looked pretty fun. It took me a while to get around to watching the first one, and I thought it was decent for, what it was. I'm not going to judge it like it's supposed to be some sort of Oscar-winning film, you know what I mean? But it looks fun. I'm excited.
Definitely. And are we just going to forget that Idris Elba said one of the hardest lines ever, like, as Knuckles?
What did he say?
Like,
I forgot.
He was like, of course, Sonic is like, oh, you never take my power away from me, and he charges at Knuckles, and Knuckles stops him, and Knuckles was like, do I really need your power, or something like that. It sounded so good. Like,
yeah, I mean, Idris Elba's the GOAT.
Yeah, I know.
Anything that man says sounds epic as hell. So you know what I mean.
And also, like, before the trailer dropped or something, he came he says he had a comment on an interview or whatever saying how his voice would not sound sexy. Like, Knuckles' voice would not sound sexy in Sonic 2. And I'm like, bro, you're Idris Elba, bro. Like,
any way you sound is gonna be sexy.
Exactly. So I was like, that's just really impossible. So
Jim Carrey looking great.
Definitely.
I love that, man.
Surprised he didn't get fat over because at the end of the movie, But yeah. I personally don't mind. He's so great either way.
100%. But yeah, it's Sonic 2. Let's move on to some Star Wars stuff. A new Star Wars game was announced called Star Wars Eclipse, made by Quantic Dream, the same people who made Detroit Become Human. The game is placed in the High Republic era, which is super exciting. That it's a new era to the Star Wars universe, but the stuff that I've seen from it seems really, really cool. Now, Quantic Dream has a lot of controversy behind it, we'll say. But just looking at the honestly, I just want a good Star Wars game. I just want a good Star Wars game. So I'm gonna take what I can get, to be honest with you.
Sure. I mean, we've had good Star Wars games before,
Okay. Good Star Wars games that I can actually play.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, well, what about Battlefront 2?
I mean, okay. Good single player, story driven Star Wars games.
I know. Yeah. What a shame.
Shut up.
Oh man.
It's all my fault. I blame SpongeBob. That's a whole other thing. Anyway, let's move on to some DC news. James Gunn teased that Peacemaker won't be the only spinoff of the Suicide Squad. So I don't know.
Bloodsport.
Yeah, that's
I
exactly.
smell.
I'm hoping for a Bloodsport series.
I smell a Bloodsport like show coming.
Whew. God, I love
smell
that.
it.
How about a Bloodsport Ratcatcher team up?
That would be dope. Actually, that would be really dope.
Hell yeah!
Imagine Bloodsport and Deadshot.
Ooh.
Title it Mercenaries.
Title it the same character but different.
Oh, that would be so cool.
But yeah, so that's super exciting. Colin Farrell has officially signed on to return for the Batman spin-off The Penguin, as obviously the Penguin. That prosthetic makeup still blows my mind.
Really?
That man is truly unrecognizable. I mean, but yeah, I mean they're really banking off this movie, man. Like spin-off after spin-off. Like I'm excited. It's obviously the Batman is like one of my, or probably my most anticipated movie of 2022. Like even Doctor Strange, like I mean we haven't seen a trailer for Doctor Strange, so like that could change, I guess. But as of right now, that the Batman is number one.
For sure.
Along with that, a Wonder Woman game was announced. It's from the studio behind Shadow of War, which is a Lord of the Rings game. If you have no idea what that is, it's also going to be open world, and this is honestly super exciting. A studio that has done a bunch of like mystical stuff before with doing Wonder Woman. It's open world stuff like that. This has the potential to be a genuinely really good game. I'm hoping for good things because DC, besides like the Arkham games, they don't have the best track record, do they? As far as games goes.
I mean, of course, some could argue that they do because you have like the Arkham series,
Arkham and Injustice.
Arkham Injustice. You have like the Telltale games.
Yeah.
And then you have like, if you want to get technical, there's the Lego games or whatever.
That doesn't really count.
It counts. I count it.
Technically, I guess, but it's not like it's a Lego game before it's a DC game.
And then like we can, of course, we haven't seen we haven't seen much of Suicide Squad game, which you could talk about next.
Yeah, we got a little bit of gameplay, but not really from Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. It was like a cinematic trailer of characters in gameplay. It wasn't really showing off gameplay all that much, to be honest. And it's still kind of odd because the game's not that far away.
Yeah.
I don't know. I am still excited because it's Rocksteady and they're great. So I'm hoping that this is really good. Again, it's taking place in the Arkham universe, which is exciting. I don't know. I'm hoping it's good, though. I'm hoping. But that's the last of the DC news. Let's move on to some Marvel news. The first thing is Eternals will arrive on Disney Plus January 12th. So if you haven't seen that, you don't got to wait that long. Literally in a little over a month. There you go. Eternals is on Disney Plus. The No Way Home suits, the black and gold suit and the integrated suit will be arriving on Spider-Man PS5. By the time this comes out, it's already there. So hop on your PS5 if you have one, if you're lucky enough to have one, and use those suits. They look great.
They look amazing, bro. You know what suit they need to add? And the
Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit.
Yeah, they need to add that suit for real.
I don't understand why they have it already.
I don't understand either.
Makes no sense.
Could mean they added the first one with the freaking yellow eyes, the yellow see-through eyes.
Anyway, a Shang-Chi sequel is in the works with Destin Daniel Cretton set to return to direct and write. He is also developing a new MCU Disney Plus series, which is probably the rumored 10 Rings series, but who knows. Obviously, super exciting. We loved Shang-Chi, easily one of our favorite MCU movies, period.
Definitely.
So any more of that, we will gladly take.
You want to know what I want to see?
What?
I want to see a Shang-Chi and Spider-Man limited series.
I would love that. I need it.
Shang-Chi and Spider-Man, The Way of the Spider. That's what the name should be.
Bring in Iron Fist in the sequel and make sure it's not Finn Jones.
Or, if it is going to be Finn Jones, let him actually do something. Like, let him actually practice his moves.
But he doesn't want to, does he?
Yeah, he doesn't want to.
He doesn't want.
Yeah, he doesn't want to, and that's why the freaking action was so lackluster in the first season.
Just bring in Jessica Henwick and just have Colleen Wing be Iron Fist.
Nah, bro, we need a black Iron Fist.
Oh,
nah, we don't need that right now. Maybe in the future that'd be cool.
Other than that, according to the Direct, MODOK will have a major role in Ant-Man 3 and will not be played by Jim Carrey, like previously rumored. And now, this is from Geeks Worldwide, it's rumored that Corey Stoll, who plays Darren Cross, or Yellow Jacket, in the first Ant-Man, will somehow come back and will be the MCU's MODOK. I don't know how I feel about this.
I mean, it's kind of weird, bro. Imagine like you get shrunken down in the freaking quantum realm to the point where your head just like expands.
True, yeah. Like I guess it's like maybe like. Well, no, I was gonna say maybe like the helmet broke, but Michelle Pfeiffer was fine.
Yeah, but also it's like one of those things where it's like, where in the quantum realm is he?
True, because, and maybe it affects everyone differently.
It definitely does, because like she was able to control it after being there for like 30 years.
Yeah, I guess it could work, but also I really like the idea of Jim Carrey as MODOK.
I really do as well, man. I don't know. Of course, I'm open to see how Corey Stoll will play MODOK. I just don't want to, because I don't want to say it's a missed opportunity until I see the performance.
Yeah, well, it's also, I think part of it is he was fine. He's a good actor. But since his character has already been through what he's already been through, which was already, in my opinion, lackluster, he wasn't a great villain. He was one of those villains like Iron Man 1 who kind of just went crazy for no reason. And so I just feel like it's a little unearned. But again, we don't really know until we see the movie, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I mean it'll be cool to see MODOK, Other than that, Amy Pascal, during the little press tour for No Way Home, said that they are in the planning stages on Venom 3. Yay.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
Let's go.
I'm ecstatic. I've never been more excited for a movie in my life.
Shut up, dude. Why are you hating so much?
It's not good. They're not good movies.
Dude, ain't no way you hating so hard.
Bad.
Yes, they're bad but enjoyable.
Maybe the second one.
Stop it. Dude, what is wrong with you?
They're bad.
Stop talking.
But we got two more pieces of news, and we'll save the best for last, these two, because we'll start off with this first one here. Kevin Feige confirms Charlie Cox will be MCU's Daredevil, quote, "If you were to see Daredevil in upcoming things, Charlie Cox, yes, would be the actor playing Daredevil. Where we see that, how we see that, when we see that, remains to be seen." Now, Kevin, by remains to be seen, you mean literally in less than a week.
bro, Kevin Feige knows what happened, bro. He's trying to play it off so badly, bro.
My dude's good at his job. But I'm also surprised he said anything.
Yeah,
like when this news came out, I was like, "Whoa!" He actually just came out and said, "Yeah, Charlie Cox."
It's like also the thing is like, I mean, he might as well say something because like it's already out there.
Well, yeah, but then in that case, you might as well say that Toby and Andrew are in the movie.
Well, no, because the thing is like about Daredevil is that there's so much stuff around Daredevil already, and everyone still talks about Daredevil to this day.
Yeah.
So
and Vincent D'Onofrio in Hawkeye.
Yeah, Vincent D'Onofrio. He's been trolling on Twitter. I know he's been trolling on Twitter, bro. So it's just like one of those things where, I mean, might as well just come out and say it already,
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, regardless, it's incredibly exciting just to have that like official confirmation. Yeah, Charlie Cox will be the MCU's Daredevil, because that man is
Incredible.
so perfect that I still think Charlie Cox is is blind in real life. Anytime I see that man, I'm like, that guy's blind. How is he?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely Charlie Cox fits in the category of perfect roles people were casted as.
For real. And then this last piece of news, the Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 trailer came out.
God. That is so amazing.
It came out like maybe like an hour after we got finished recording the last week's podcast. It is what it is. But man, super exciting. Super excited. Man, just to jump back into this world is amazing. And people found out that Sony has another movie on their slate in October of 2023, which means that Part 1 and Part 2 will likely be a year apart.
They are going to be a year apart.
Thank God we don't have to wait, 3 years
Oh my God,
for Part 2. Oh, could you imagine? But yeah.
Hey, I mean, it's going to be amazing, man, because it's literally unlimited possibilities that this movie is going to explore. I can't wait for that. Also, get to see Spider-Man 2099 with him looking buff as hell.
Oscar Isaac, obviously, in the role.
Oscar Isaac is amazing. Incredible.
Great actor. Can we discuss something? Because there's been a debate because of this trailer going around. Specifically about the timeline and Miles' age. Because if you look at this trailer compared to the first Spider-Verse movie, Miles looks bigger.
Miles is definitely taller. His hair has grown a lot. There's oh my God.
He's broader.
It is broader. His suit changed.
Still
also the animation. Yeah. But there's also this stupid debate of Miles Miles his heritage or whatever, because people are like, it doesn't show any of his Puerto Rican side, Latino side, whatever. It's like, bro, come on, shut up.
Or that
if you read the comics,
he's too black.
Yeah, because in the comics, of course, you don't have to look a certain way or whatever, but of course, in the comics, Miles is portrayed as only black. Of course, he's both. He looks more black in the comics than he does in Into Spider-Verse. So people were like, he just showed up his sign. He's claiming his Latino sign. Bro, shut up. I hate that. I had to get that out of the way. But yeah, definitely time has passed, because you can also tell that when Gwen's looking at him through the portal, it looks like they've been doing this for a long time.
Well,
a while.
Well, yeah, I see people bring that up, but Miles in the trailer also says that he never thought he'd see her again, which implies that it's been a long time. So how much of a time jump is this? Is it maybe it hasn't been that much of a time jump, and it's just like a character model change?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's. I mean, obviously we'll find out next year.
Yeah.
Man, we gotta wait a whole ass year, man.
It's okay. It's gonna come out super quickly.
That's true. That's terrifying.
Because the thing is, 2022 is so stacked that it's gonna be 2023 before we know it.
Yeah. Every month, and just movies alone, and then you add the Marvel shows in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jesus.
I'll tell you, man, it's gonna be here before we know it.
Stacked.
And they're most likely gonna release around the same time too. They're probably gonna release maybe they're gonna release in the summer of 2023, depending how fast they work, of course.
Super exciting.
Really.
And also when he jumps through that portal and the animation style changes.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say something about that.
Looks gorgeous, man. These animators for these movies are on crack. This shit that they're putting out is something special.
I love it. The animation is just incredible. Really, really incredible. I'm glad that they I'm glad that it looks the way that it does.
Truly. But yeah, that is the news for the week. Let's jump into our topic for this week. This episode is either going to be really long or really short. We don't really know, to be honest.
Just saying this right now, there's going to be so much negativity and so much ranting that it is going to create a freaking dark portal of just hate because of how much we're going to be talking about.
Definitely. But yeah, so we're going to be getting into the who is the best Spider-Man, the pros, the cons, stupid complaints and criticisms, fair complaints and criticisms, etc., most comic accurate, whatever the case may be. We're going to be getting into all that. So Torrin, why don't you start us off?
Okay. All right, let's get into it. All right, rubbing my hands like Birdman over here. So
wait. Oh, yeah. So we gonna start off with the stupid complaints or the fair complaints?
I'm starting off with whichever complaint I have right here, right now.
Okay.
So the first complaint that I've been hearing is I'm gonna start off with my man Andrew Garfield, right? The best Spider-Man who's done dirty. So there is this complaint that like how Andrew Garfield like. He like has like revenge. He has this like revenge thing in the Amazing Spider-Man 1 when they did the same thing in like the Spider-Man 1 2002 with the Raimi trilogy. I think that's a dumb complaint because like I said, Tobey Maguire did the same thing. And if we want to take it even further, I think this is before he got his powers in the comics or after he got his powers. It's somewhere around there. But Peter Parker already had a revenge mindset. He literally after I think getting bullied. I think I have the comment panel right here. After getting bullied or whatever, he literally says, "I'm gonna make them pay for what they did to me." He literally says that in the comics. So I don't get why people say that. Oh, I don't like Andrew Garfield because he takes revenge.
Well, yeah, and then those same people go and praise Toby when he did the exact same thing.
Exactly. And it's like, Grant, Andrew Garfield did go on a manhunt, for looking for people that look just like the guy. But still, point still stands, both of them did an act of revenge after Uncle Ben died. So that complaint is really, really stupid.
Agreed.
So that is my first point.
Yeah, so one of the stupid complaints, it's not necessarily because I could kind of see how it's a fair complaint, but at the same time, if we're talking about this Spider-Man here, I think it makes sense that Toby cries too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he does cry quite a bit, but Spider-Man is a pretty emotional character.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I think maybe Toby gets maybe emotional too much, but I think the amount of crying isn't really all that bad. I think the thing that people don't like about that necessarily is his faces. That man's facial expressions. That's one of my fair complaints, to be honest, is that his facial expressions sometimes make it hard to take him seriously.
Also, there's I noticed that when I was watching Spider-Man 1 yesterday, Peter Parker, not Peter Parker, Tobey Maguire, licks his tears. When Aunt May's talking to him, he licks his tears. I'm like, what the fuck?
He does?
Well, he doesn't lick his tears, but he just his bottom lip goes up on his top lip, and he's just tasting his tears. It just looked weird.
I gotta see that clip now. I don't remember that.
But yeah, definitely. Peter Parker is definitely an emotional person. That's basically the point of Spider-Man is that he's still, even though he has he's a mutate, he's still a human, and right. He definitely has his moments where he just fucking balls out crying and shit like that. But yeah, definitely Tobey Maguire has funny faces whenever he cries, and it's granted everyone's crying isn't beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's understandable. So my next point is also going to be about Andrew Garfield. And the dumbest thing I've ever heard was Andrew Garfield is too cool to be Peter Parker, or as Peter Parker was too cool.
Yeah,
it is
that's what
the
I was gonna
dumbest
get
thing
into.
ever. And literally, like, people use this excuse of like, oh well, he rides a skateboard. My says, what does riding a skateboard make you cool?
It's like I think it was this whole thing about like, especially at the time, it was a bigger sort of term being thrown around, is that he was a hipster.
Yeah,
Which hipster is one of those things now. Well, it was back then, but I think people realize it more now. It's one of those words that people throw around without really understanding who that really applies to. Because Andrew Garfield's Peter is absolutely not a hipster. Why? Because he has long swooshy hair and rides a skate. That makes no sense.
definitely.
like yeah, riding a skateboard isn't what about that makes him cool? Because he's a skater boy. He said "see you later, boy." Like I don't like what about that is oh man, they're trying to make Peter Parker cool.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't make any sense to me. And like I'm just gonna go off like on a tangent. I saw someone tweet this and it got like almost 1 million likes. And the people who fucking like that are dumbasses. I don't give a fuck who you are. I'm sorry. You're a dumbass for even thinking about that shit. It's just the dumbest thing ever. And also, like adding on to his Peter Parker, people said that he's he's way too attractive to be Peter Parker. Like, are you fucking stupid? Like, I'm sorry for cursing this much, but it's such a dumb take. It's such a dumb take.
Yeah, Peter. It's like Peter has always been, or has always supposed to have been an attractive guy. Like, he's not supposed to be something like a fucking like a model necessarily, but like I think that's why people really like Tom Holland, because he's clearly a good looking kid, but he's not fucking like Tom Holland posing for a photo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And I literally think it's only because of the hair, and that's it. Because
I mean, like, yeah, still, and the add on to that, it's like, you know, and it's also like they're not gonna make a mainstream hero ugly. Like they're not gonna do that.
Right. But I mean, even if you look in the comics, he's not, I mean, besides the 60s comics, I guess, but like that was the fucking 60s. You know?
Yeah. It's just like, you know, just regular drawings. But yeah, like
look at
comics.
Look at Civil War. I mean, he's a good looking guy.
Yeah, he's a very attractive guy. Even like in Ultimate, bro. Like he has like, you know, this like kind of not like a bowl cut in a way, but like his hair is like more down and everything. He's still an attractive looking guy. So I just never really understood that part. It's like, yeah, Peter Parker has never been ugly. And to add on to like Peter Parker as a whole, and I've said this multiple times, and I'm going to say it again right here, and I'm going to say it later on as well. Peter Parker is of course he's a nerd, but he's not a fucking dweeb, and he's not like just like some fucking like loser who doesn't get any girls. And like, cause like he gets girls, and people often forget that. And it kind of goes back into a point that I'm gonna say again that I use in our last podcast. But still, it's like I hate that dumbass take. It's so stupid. But yeah, what's your second take?
Well, the too cool thing was my second take, but I'm gonna move into some fair complaints a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A specific, we're going into Toby a bit. He has a bad Spider-Man persona, and it's not. It's kind of complicated because people have made arguments that the Spider-Man persona wasn't necessarily very quippy in the beginning, and that's not wrong. He wasn't like super quippy in the beginning, but those movies also came out in the early 2000s. And I understand that they were trying to blueprint off the original 60s comics, but by then people know Spider-Man as the quippy guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think it differs once you get into Tom's in the MCU, because everyone's fucking quippy in the MCU, right? For
sure.
So. Yeah. And Andrew, I'm going to get into Andrew in a second because this kind of bleeds into Andrew. But his Spider-Man, his Spider-Man doesn't feel like Spider-Man. His Spider-Man feels like Peter Parker in a Spider-Man suit. And I think
That's fair.
And I think that's actually a similar thing to a lot of people talk about Henry Cavill's Superman, how he's never really Clark Kent. He's just Kal-El at all times. And I think that's the same thing here. I never really feel, oh, this guy is Spider-Man in this moment. I'm like, no, that's just Peter Parker wearing a mask. But
yeah, for sure.
But then you have the juxtaposition to that, and you get into Andrew. And while Andrew is goddamn near pitch perfect when he's in that suit, they overdo it a bit. Mm-hmm. And sometimes he comes off as too confident or too smug, and sometimes sometimes it can come off as like rude or mean-spirited. And in the beginning, sort of like in the Amazing Spider-Man 1, I can kind of forgive that, although he was kind of rude to those police. I just did 80% of your job and shit like that. But other than that, you go into like TASM 2, and while the quipping, it's fun. It's light, it's entertaining, it's Spider-Man. But there's a line, there's a limit, and I talked about it in that podcast. But my guy is just quipping to Rhino, and because he's Spider-Man, he's got to quip, and that's why I also don't understand the MCU Spidey complaints where like, oh, they got to do jokes every 2 minutes. They did it in these movies. It's not specific to MCU Spidey. He's quipping a Rhino, and then he just lets this fucking truck crash through a bunch of cars and shit. It's I don't want to say it's necessarily a lack of responsibility, because that's not really what it. I feel like that's not necessarily fair, because it's in very specific moments. Most of the time, he is pretty good at quipping, but also being responsible. But there are moments where like that, where it's just like, ooh, dude, like maybe lay off the quips for a second. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's definitely my fair complaint for Andrew. But for Tom, Tom is very complicated, because it's really hard, it's really difficult for them to toe that. What Feige wanted to do with MCU Spider-Man is to do something different. Before Homecoming, he specifically said they wanted to do something that he wanted to take the character where the other iterations of Spider-Man didn't go or couldn't go. You notice that Andrew was essentially, like, especially in the Amazing Spider-Man 1, is beat for beat Spider-Man 1. Of course, they go into their own thing, but Tom's Spider-Man is in this world of superheroes for the first time, where the other two didn't necessarily have that. And so it's really hard for them to toe this line. How connected do we make this? Is it too connected? Is it too disconnected? What can we give this Spider-Man? Because maybe it's unrealistic that we give him just like the bare bone stuff, when it's like, well, he has the Avengers are right there, so why don't they help? And all that really complicated bullshit that the other Spider-Man didn't really necessarily have to deal with those logistics and stuff. But for Tom, I think a fair complaint would be that his movies, with the villains specifically, are too connected to Stark. And I don't hate the connections to Stark, especially in Homecoming. I think that connection to Stark actually bolsters Vulture as a villain. But when you get to Far From Home, I don't hate the idea that Mysterio was screwed over by Stark, because he's not really a Spider-Man villain per se, but a lot of Spider-Man's villains aren't necessarily Spider-Man made, if that makes sense. Because a lot of the times they are people that have bad things happen to them, like an experiment goes wrong or something like that, and they're just villains in their own right. And then Spider-Man goes and stops them or interferes with something, and then they're like, this guy's Spider-Man, and then they're Spider-Man villains. a lot of the times Spider-Man isn't necessarily directly involved. So in that sense, I don't really mind that Stark connection. But the fact that there is 2 Stark-related villains in a row is a bit much. And I think it's like, okay, we just got this with Vulture. And while I love Mysterio in Far From Home, and I really like Far From Home, I think they could have done something different or changed his backstory to something else. I don't know what they could have done, but I think they could have done something different there. And along with that, he has this overuse of large-scale technology, and I want to specify that when I say overuse of large-scale technology, I'm not talking about technology as a whole. Technology has always been a part of Spider-Man. It's always been a part of the character and stuff like that. But what hasn't been part of the character is stuff like Karen, stuff like Edith, the 500 plus web combinations. Now, in his defense, he didn't use those 500 plus web combinations. Those actually hindered him. I talked about that in last week's podcast. But stuff like Karen and stuff like Edith, especially Edith, it's too much. It's just too much. And sometimes especially now with No Way Home coming out, I kind of just want, like, I want Spider-Man to have a break from, like, the big I kind of want him to have a truly low to the ground, just Peter Parker story. And I think we're going to get some of that in No Way Home, but because of the multiverse stuff and all that. And speaking of which, I think this, again, it sounds weird because it's a little too connected to the MCU, which again sounds weird because it's in the MCU, and I think they want to really solidify, like, yes, this is the MCU Spider-Man with all these MCU characters that are showing up. And because Homecoming took place like really close to Civil War, I think Stark's presence makes sense there. But in something like Far From Home, do we need Nick Fury there? Do we need Maria Hill there? In No Way Home, I really, really like Doctor Strange, so I kind of let that one slide because I like the character so much. But also in the comics, Strange and Spidey are, kind of buddy-buddy. But yeah, and I think the sort of my final fair complaint for Tom is that he has a lot and arguably too much in common with Miles Morales, which specifically, I think the biggest one is Ned Leeds, who was essentially Genki Lee. Like, pretty much, he's pretty much exactly Genki. Like, I don't think there's very little difference there. And that kind of goes back into Kevin Feige's sort of idea that he wants to do things differently. He didn't want to do an origin story, which I agree with, but he also wanted to give him different friends. He didn't want to do MJ and Harry again, because we've seen that twice now. Well, not twice. We didn't get to see it in Amazing Spider-Man 2, but it was going to be in Amazing Spider-Man 2. They were going to do it again, but so we got Michelle Jones, MJ, and we got Ned Leeds. And Ned Leeds, I don't think would have been a bad choice as a replacement to Harry, but I think it is kind of a weird choice that they essentially made him Genki, because when they bring Miles Morales in, and I feel like they will eventually, how are they going to do Genki? Are they gonna just do another Ned Leeds type in the MCU, or are they gonna like do another switch up and have Genki be sort of like a Harry Osborn type to Miles Morales? I don't know how that's gonna be executed, but I feel like they kind of put themselves in a corner there, and I don't know how they're gonna get out. But besides the Genki connection, it's difficult because a lot of the stuff with Miles is sort of this kid is looking up to a superhero and really trying really, really hard to impress them so they can eventually succeed them. And Tom has a lot of similarity with that. I mean, he's just a kid trying to prove himself to Stark, so he can eventually become his own hero in his own right. But and like that's a fair complaint. But at the same time, while it is true that it is closely similar to Miles, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing until they add Miles, in which case I can sort of see how that could be an issue. It's like, well, you're just doing Homecoming again or whatever. But at the same time, I feel like that's such a sort of like a I don't want to say, I'm not by the books, but sort of a familiar story enough that I don't think it won't matter all that much. It won't be that bad. So I don't think that we don't have to worry about that as much.
Understandable. Yeah. I just like, I was muted the whole entire time because people were fucking talking, doing shit. But yeah, that was like a long ass fucking rant. That shit was like 30 hours, bro. But I mean, you explained like half of my points already, so thank you. But yeah, I'm just gonna agree with everything you just said right there.
That was that was some fair complaints. Why don't you get into the stupid complaints since you're the one getting angry?
So
I'll get angry in a second.
So yeah, like you've already addressed all your fair complaints or whatever, which I agree with, and so like you already did my job for me. And I'm gonna reiterate some of those points. So like pretty much about Peter Parker's age and like just how he isn't a carbon copy of like the adult Spidey or the Spidey that we got for the past like 2 iterations. So I'm gonna start off with the Spider-Man with Peter Parker's age. So they always like Peter Parker in iterations starts out as like a kid. He's like 15, gets his powers or whatever. Yeah, it's like Civil War, blah 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 blah. And it's also one of those things like where the Spider-Man fandom completely did like a 180. Because I remember, after the Amazing Spider-Man 2, like in that like probably like before like it was like 2015, or like I want like a more like youthful Spider-Man. I want him to be in high school, and I want him to I wanted to see him grow up, right? Which we're getting that. Like I said, they did a complete 180 because now they're all like, well, fucking, we need to get Peter Parker out of high school, blah 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 blah. Like we need to go on to adult Spidey. And all that stuff. And just
it was real weird. Everyone was like, well, let's put him in high school, and then they cast Tom Holland, who was 19 at the time it was casting. People were like, yes, finally a young Spider-Man. And then of course the movie started coming out, and now we're at today, and people are like, man, we don't want young Spider-Man.
Yeah,
put him in college already. And then of course, and a similar thing to Uncle Ben. After the Amazing Spider-Man, it's like, Jesus Christ, do we really need to see Uncle Ben die again? And and then we get to Civil War, and then people were like, for Homecoming, people were like, I swear to God, if we see Uncle Ben die again, I'm gonna fucking lose it. And we don't get to see that Uncle Ben origin, and now people are like, oh, where's Uncle Ben?
Yeah,
I can't believe they would forget the thing that's fundamental to Spider-Man. And it's like, it's not there. It's just not on screen because we already know. We don't need to see it. We know that he loved Ben and stuff like that, and Ben obviously died and blah blah blah. He's Spider-Man now. With great power comes great responsibility. We know that. Everyone knows that. We don't need to see it, and yet because we still didn't see it for the fucking third time, now people are like up in arms. Like
and it's like, because the thing is like with going back to Spider-Man's age or the age of everyone else, like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were like, in their 20s. Like, I think like Tobey Maguire was like 22, and then like, playing Spider-Man, Peter Parker.
I think he was
in 2002.
Older.
He was older?
I think so. You keep talking, I'll do the math.
So then like, yeah, so he was like still, let's just say he was like going into like his mid-20s. Same thing for Andrew Garfield,
Andrew Garfield was older.
Like, yeah, actually, you're right. He was older. So then it's like, yeah, like they were saying, yeah, I want him. Like the fandom was like, we want a more youthful Spidey. Like I want him because I want him to like last very long because like Andrew Garfield is pushing his 40s, while Tobey Maguire is in his 40s.
Tobey was 26 or 27.
Okay. Oh wow. Yeah. Oh fucking lord. Not saying it's bad, because he still looks good for his age, and he looked good back then. But still, it's like the point still stands. And then, like, yeah, they're like saying like, well, yeah, we want a more youthful Spidey because we want to last over a very long time, and it's like, it's just strange how that happened. It's like, what the hell? And then going to the point of like saying how like they wanted like a how Tom Holland isn't a carbon copy, with the Uncle Ben origin, and how he's like not he's not a senior in high school and like going on to graduate college like in the same film or the next two films or whatever. It's like, it's just so like boring, bro. And they're all like, why is Tom Holland Spider-Man not he's not struggling financially with bills? I'm like, bro, he's 15. Who's a 15-year-old who's struggling with bills? Like, no one does that. And it's like, oh yeah, Peter Parker's not poor. I'm like, dude, he literally has like a freaking like PC from like the 90s in his room.
Yeah, he's literally a dumpster diver.
And he comes in, and he comes in with junk as he's walking in Civil War. And like you said in the last podcast, where when Happy asks him, "Oh, have you ever been on a private plane?" with that tone deaf like question, and then Peter Parker's like, "Well, I've never been on any plane." It's so reinforcing the fact that he is not that rich, or he doesn't like he's so on like the lower class scale. And then
it's like imagine when you were a kid, like your parents are like in front of you being like, "Oh fuck, we need money so bad." We're running out. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, they don't want you to stress out.
They're like, hey, go open up a lemonade stand and cough it up whenever you get more money. Like, no, they're not doing that, bro. It's just so stupid to me. And okay, I'm gonna read, and I'm also going to I'm gonna bleed into this fact. People praise PS4 Spidey, but they hate on Tom Holland when they're essentially the same character, except PS4 Spidey is a little bit older.
Here we go. Okay, yeah, because everyone hates Tom Holland for all the technology stuff. And while I was talking about the tech earlier, the tech that PS4 Spider-Man uses, I'm telling you, if Tom Holland used that same shit, people would be fucking livid. But PS4 Spider-Man uses it, and it's like, hell yeah, this is the best first we've ever gotten.
Yeah, no, and it's also like, it's like, oh my god, I don't like how Tony Stark is a mentor. Okay, and then like, oh my god, I love how Dr. Octopus is a mentor to Peter. Like, it's the same shit, dude.
And then people hate that Stark made his suit, and yet Doc Ock made him the literally front cover
exactly
Spider-Man suit in that game.
Yeah, he literally
wild to me.
Like in the freaking in the game, he's like, I made some upgrades like for the suit, and it was a note on the costume.
It's like, oh my exactly god, the same.
Exactly, and it's like, yeah, the one difference is that PS4 Spider-Man is a little bit older. He's like 23.
Yeah, he's 23, 24.
And he's like struggling.
And like the only difference between them is Doc Ock doesn't really have the funds that Stark does, but still, he has resources.
Exactly. And that's what people don't understand, which I'm going to talk about in my next point, is all about resources, because literally, like, it's just like that's what he used to make his suit at the end of the game, the advanced suit. It's just a resource to make it, to have more technology shit, which I'm going to bleed into my next argument of you explained it a little bit, in your rant of the fucking technology Iron Boy Jr. argument. People just took that shit and ran with it, bro. They don't understand. They don't pay attention. They are not watching Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home. They watching fucking Spider-Man like Apartment Coming. Like, I don't fucking know what they're watching, bro. But they ain't watching what we watching.
Yeah, the point of those movies is pretty clear. The point of Homecoming is that he doesn't need all the upgrades. He doesn't need that tech. He doesn't need all the Iron Man upgrades. He can be his own hero with his own sort of like base suit. He doesn't need all that shit. And Far From Home was he's not the next Iron Man. He's his own hero. He'll never be the next Iron Man because he is Spider-Man. That's who he is. And then people are like, oh, did you see he made his suit in a Stark plane?
I wanted him to go to fucking Hobby Lobby and get some sewing materials.
I can't believe he was in the Netherlands and he didn't get any sewing machines. What is that?
I'm surprised he didn't call Rosemary Harris to get some knitting lessons. Like, shut the fuck up, bro. Fuck you.
What else is he gonna do?
He and that's also going back to the point of like resources. He has a resource. It's not like Spider-Man is it's not like this Spider-Man is like all tech based. And the thing also going back to Far From Home with the theme of like technology is something that is like you giving technology to the wrong person is your consequence. You have to have your responsibility. But it's so mind-boggling to me that
and technology has always been a part of Peter Parker's character.
Exactly.
Always. I mean, again, I think I talked about it in the Tom Holland podcast that we did. But the web wings. I remember people complaining about the web wings. Why the fuck does he have web wings? Spider-Man doesn't fly. Well, I mean, fucking the original comic.
The original comic.
He has web wings.
Exactly.
And then there was obviously, now this isn't really you don't see this much from maybe more educated Spider-Man fans, but a lot of the people who have only seen the Raimi ones, you'll find people like I can't believe he needed to make his own web shooters. Why is he making web shooters?
For people that don't know, people who watch the podcast, I'm gonna give y'all a little quick story about that happening. So I'm on Twitter as usual, looking at hate comments and saying how Peter Parker, like Tom Holland's Peter Parker, is inaccurate because he has web shooters, and everyone was like saying, including me, were saying that Peter Parker has always had web shooters in the comics. And some guy was like, no, that's wrong. Toby's he basically was just saying like Toby was like the true Spider-Man, and he was like just fighting the fact that he was wrong because I showed him from comics and to live action that Spider-Man's always had web shooters. So, I just don't understand why people only watch the Raimi trilogy and they think that that's how Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to say about this point, because people have watched the Raimi trilogy and all that stuff. And as I said from our last podcast, that the Raimi trilogy they think that because the Raimi trilogy is Spider-Man's character only, it created this unrealistic standard for the iteration of future Spider-Man live action.
Yeah,
because it's Spider-Man Peter Parker's a loser. No, he's not. You just only saw the Raimi trilogy and that you based it off that. Peter Parker is not a loser. He got bullied because he was a nerd, which is the 60s at the time. But Peter Parker is he's actually a person that people want to be around. He's awkward at times, yeah. But Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is a fucking creep, staring at MJ all the time, having flashbacks of her when he's looking at his costume,
peeping at her through the window.
Exactly, and it's just okay, and that's fine for people not to read comics, but it would at least help you out if you knew what you're talking about, because it's just I don't know, it's just like I said, people, they look at the Raimi trilogy and they base Spider-Man off that trilogy, when disregarding comics and other iterations like Tom Holland. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and going back to a bit of the sort of Tony Stark thing, a lot of people like to say that the MCU replaced Uncle Ben with Tony Stark. And no. I think that's so blatantly untrue. And that's also going to bleed into another thing, how people like to say, or people will say that Spider-Man should hate Tony Stark. and I don't actually disagree. I think they're right, but I think it's more complicated than that, and I'm about to get into that. So I would make the argument that Peter Parker hasn't even spent like a full 48 hours with Tony Stark. Like, think about the timeline. We see him in they meet in Civil War, right? And they spent some time in their apartment or whatever, and then he leaves, and he doesn't even go with him on the trip to Germany, right? Because we see that in Homecoming. He's with Happy the entire time. And so they fight a little bit in Civil War, okay, and then I guess he's with him a little bit on the way back when they're doing the little film in the car. He's talking about Aunt May wearing something skimpy, he hopes, and so there's the little back and forth. He's like there and he's gone. He's there and he's gone. He's there and he's gone all throughout Homecoming. And then after Homecoming, we see him in Infinity War, and that's the longest amount of time he spent with Tony Stark at one time. And I'm pretty sure that movie took place within like a day. I don't, yeah. And so then Spider-Man dies. So now there's a 5-year gap, right? And then he comes back, and he has a little moment with Stark. They hug or whatever, and boom, Tony's dead. Now in our timeline, right? That's like 16, 17, 18, 19. That's 3 years. But if you really think about their timeline in universe, they haven't spent that much time together.
They really didn't.
Peter Parker does not know Tony Stark. He sees him, he looks up to him as a mentor because obviously he does. Again, we got it. Okay, get into this too. Circumstances. In the comics, Spider-Man is sort of growing as heroes with the Avengers, right? Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. We live in the world where Toby's exists because Sony owns Spider-Man and Andrews exists, and they're always in their own universe doing whatever without any other heroes around because that's what they own. But now that they're able to use Spider-Man in the MCU, the MCU's already established. I guess they could have retconned him in, but there would have been a lot of fucking logistics and retconning to fucking do all that. So they have to place him in this world where heroes are already established, the Avengers already exist, and where he was a kid when the Avengers were fucking arrived for the first time. Of course he idolizes them. He doesn't if Captain America went to him instead of Stark, Cap would have been his mentor instead. Anyone from the fucking Avengers, right? Because he idolizes them. He says in Civil War that he's a big fan of Captain America. He doesn't fucking hate Captain America. He just loves the Avengers. So I would make the argument that if Stark didn't die, if he was like younger or whatever, it doesn't matter if he lived, and Peter got to know him more and spent more than fucking less than 24 hours with the guy, and Peter matured and got older, I think I would argue that, and we'll never know this obviously, but I'd argue that Tom's Spider-Man would eventually grow to resent Tony Stark.
Yeah, for sure.
So this idea that Stark replaced Uncle Ben is just fucking wild to me. Like, no, he's just a mentor. That's all he is. He like he has that little stern talking to him in fucking Homecoming, but like beyond, there is no real fatherly sort of love there besides Endgame, when he had a 5-year fucking gap to really think about his actions and shit. You know what I mean? And then but then that moment was fucking fleeting because then he died. So yeah, I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty fucking dumb.
It is. And it's just like, oh my god, yeah. I really hope that like just people try to understand like what we're saying, because oh my god, it's just
you'll notice that a lot of the arguments being made here is in defense for Tom Holland, because he's the main Spider-Man. Of course, the most of the bullshit is going to be thrown his way. But like, if this podcast was being made during Andrew's time, I mean, the hate towards Andrews was fucking nuts.
Yeah, that is just.
But I feel like we don't have to defend that as much, because a lot of people have turned around on that, myself included.
Yeah, because the thing is, like with Andrew Spider-Man now, is that people have started to realize that Andrew Garfield is not a bad Spider-Man or Peter Parker. It's just that his movies were really bad. But
And
also
his iteration and his actual story arc is actually incredibly comic accurate.
It really is, in which I'm going to get into that later on. But there's also like the discussion of like, is liking Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man a trend? But the thing is, like, because me and Peyton and I are on TikTok. We see like a bunch of Spider-Man edits, and usually most of those contain the Amazing Spider-Man 2, right?
It's the best looking one.
Definitely. And the thing is, people often people using that one movie, the most visually appealing Spider-Man movie, they often think that because it's so visually appealing that is the best one, which it definitely isn't. And because people confuse the term, or they confuse the terms favorite and
best
a lot. No way, shape, or form is Andrew Garfield the best Spider-Man. I think he's a lot more comic accurate than others in some aspects. Movies aren't the best.
Yeah. Do you wanna get into the whole Toby's the best Peter?
Yes, I want to get into that.
Andrew's the best. Why don't you get into that a little bit?
So I haven't seen. So I'm going based off memory here because I haven't seen Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man 3 in a long time. So I'm going on based off memory. But there was this argument or this take that people have been saying since when Spider-Man is brought into the MCU, around Homecoming, that Toby is the best Peter, Andrew's the best Spider-Man, and Tom is the best of both. Now I'm gonna go off a rail and say I don't agree with that take anymore. Only because after rewatching Spider-Man 1, Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is fucking creepy. I don't like his Peter Parker. Like, in some ways, like, yeah, it's cool to see Tobey Maguire because, nostalgia, whatever. But his Peter Parker is not the best, right? So we're going to go off a rail and say that. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is really good. Like he said, he is damn near accurate. But also comes to the point where his Peter Parker as well is like, way too smug and way too overconfident. But as I was saying, even like to a T, like, damn near, Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker is better than Tobey Maguire's in terms of characterization and even the looks. Because even in the look of the Amazing Spider-Man 1 for Andrew Garfield, he looks like more of the modern day like 60s look with the hair and the glasses and everything, right? And with Tom Holland being the best Spider-Man and Peter Parker, the best Peter Parker and Spider-Man, I feel like that can be, it can work, but sometimes it doesn't. And like I said, I don't know if I said in this podcast or not. I think I did. I don't remember. My mind's all over the place. But like, sometimes Peter Parker, like Tom Holland's Peter Parker, can come off a little too nice. And that's like, that's his Peter Parker. And sometimes his Spider-Man, of course, his Spider-Man is still learning. So he definitely is a good Spider-Man for him being in high school for the current setting of the MCU.
And to add to that sort of Tom Holland's being too nice, again, I think it's important to know his placement in the MCU and his age and stuff like that. That's because true. Like I talked about it in last week. But the idea is that this version of MCU Spidey is, we're watching him like it's Harry Potter. We're watching him grow up, and we haven't really seen him be absolutely fucking devastated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we haven't seen him.
Besides Uncle Ben, he hasn't really gotten his shit rocked. Whereas Toby and Andrews has, because they're older, they're more experienced than him. They have that life experience, whereas Tom's doesn't. I do believe we will get that eventually. We might get it in No Way Home. But we're gonna see Tom Holland's Peter Parker eventually grow into what I believe will probably be the definitive live action version, but that remains to be seen. I'm just being hopeful.
For sure. But yeah, that's kind of like a thing that I wanted to say. But also, I want to reinforce the argument with something that Peyton and I saw a long time ago. Now, these are not my words, but this is something that we had agreed on at the time. Don't know if it has changed, but we had saw a take of all three Spider-Man, right? How Tobey Spider-Man is the most like realistic or grounded in a way. However, with Andrews, definitely has the better chemistry between relationship chemistry. And I forgot the third one about Tom Holland's, but I guess it could be with Tom Holland being more comic accurate, in a way. Like I said, with Tom Holland,
we'll get into the comic accuracy stuff.
Yeah, we'll get into the comic accuracy stuff. But like I said, I think Tom Holland definitely, all three Spider-Man have their own comic accurate, aspects. But I wouldn't say Tom Holland is comic accurate just yet. That's something I used to say back then. Now I'm not so sure. Now I'm not so sure now because of how much more of Spider-Man that we're still learning about Spider-Man. And keep in mind, we don't read comics a whole lot, right? But we do know enough to where we can give a good analyzation of the character. Now, definitely with Andrew's chemistry, it is outmatched for sure. Like, I definitely think that one of the greatest things of the Amazing Spider-Man duology is the chemistry of Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield. Especially even sometimes with him and Aunt May, Sally Fields as Aunt May. Oh my God, there's a dog barking. But still, and with that, going with Tobey, with him being more grounded and realistic, I can understand that to a sense, especially after rewatching Spider-Man 1. It definitely would go down like that if this was like real life, so in some aspects. But what about that? Do you still agree with that take, or that take of the Tobey
best
being
best Peter, Andrew being best Spidey?
No, I'm talking about actually, yeah, I mean that, and about Tobey being more grounded or realistic, Andrew with chemistry, and Tom being accurate. What about that? So let's hear your thoughts.
Okay, well I'll do both. As far as the Tobey being best Peter, Andrew being best Spidey, Tom being the best of both, I said that literally in our Tobey Maguire podcast. But after rewatching all these, I don't know if I would agree with myself. Literally just 3 weeks ago. Because, okay, like if you think about it at the core, Tobey's is technically the truest to Spidey's story. He's a super poor kid from Queens that ruins his personal life for the hero life because with great power comes great responsibility. That is Tobey's ascent almost through and through, at least with Spider-Man 1 and 2. Andrews follows that pretty damn closely, but his two movies are more sort of centered around hope rather than the idea with great power comes great responsibility. And then with Tom's, it's more like fun, like romps and stuff like that. But when it comes to him, with Tobey being the best Peter, after rewatching The Amazing Spider-Man, I would not agree with that. I think Andrews is pretty goddamn close to like Ultimate Spidey, even 60s Spidey. He's really, really good. He's really good. And when it comes to Spider-Man, I think Andrews is by far the closest, even though he is at times a bit too smug, a bit too whatever,
overconfident.
Yeah. And when it comes to Tom, Tobey has the best movies, but arguably the worst characterization. Andrew has the best characterization, but the worst movies. And Tom has the most consistent character and the most consistent movies.
Yeah.
I think that's a better way to put it rather than Tobey's best Peter, Andrew's the best Spidey, Tom's the best of both.
Yeah. I definitely would agree with that a lot more.
Yeah.
I would definitely say that a lot more than that other statement.
Yeah, Tom's is definitely the most, because he's not as good necessarily as far as the characterization of Spidey goes as Andrew Garfield, but yeah, the movies are definitely better. But yeah, Andrew's characterization is fucking top notch.
For sure.
But as far as Tobey's being most grounded and Andrew's relationship being there, whatever, 100%. Yeah, Tobey's is definitely the most grounded, the most realistic. It's definitely, I mean, you see it in the third act alone, because that's the thing I was sort of like tracking the most. Tobey's definitely feels a lot more personal and stuff like that. And as far as Andrew's go, and as far as Tobey's goes, as far as the relationship goes, there's fucking nothing there.
Yeah. So,
but Andrew's is the relationship is fucking. Besides the special effects, it's the thing that carries those movies.
For sure. Speaking about characterization, and you wanted to know this before we started the podcast. I'm just gonna go. This is just a little tiny thing, but MJ.
Oof.
Why is MJ a bad character? You want to know why?
In Tobey's version.
In Tobey's version, yes, not comics. MJ is in comics is way better than Raimi's MJ. So why is Raimi's MJ this bad? Right. Number one, she's a fucking cheater. Right.
Yeah.
She fucking cheated, and she be fucking dick hopping. Right. That's just like there's 2 points that can be intertwined. Number 3, just one scene, right? There's one scene in that trilogy that just makes me go, what the fuck? And it's a scene where she's walking home by herself and she's about to get attacked by fucking 4 dudes, and then getting saved by Tobey in the rain, you know, with like just no bra, just nipples showing. And falling in love with Spider-Man, like
while she's with Harry.
Yeah, while she's with Harry,
and kisses him,
and kisses
while she's with Harry.
Yeah, yes, while she's with Harry, and also giving Harry the cold shoulder,
straight damsel in distress. Oh, my hero! Fucking Jesus!
Because in that situation, when after the almost assault. Literally, no woman would be like. They would not be like that. They would really be traumatized and shooken up and everything. They would not be. Oh well, you saved me, so I'm gonna give you a kiss while water is falling under your nose. Like, no. And then also, I know I've said this before about the Amazing Spider-Man 2 of like how. The relation, Emma Stone's and Andrew Garfield's relationship in those movies were wishy-washy.
Yeah.
But if we took the term wishy-washy and put it into Mary Jane, it would be literally just that. Because of course, that is their whole. That is Tobey Maguire's and Kirsten Dunst's like relationship throughout the whole trilogy. Because of course, she never gave Peter the light of day in the first one, and it's like at the end. It's like, oh yeah, I want to be with you because you've been there the entire time. Peter's like, no. Then Peter is like all fucking upset because like he rejected her at the end, and then like she's going out with J. Jonah Jameson's fucking son, right?
Yeah.
And then during all that, she still has feelings for Peter, because Peter tried to like just talk to her and also going with that. And when Peter was talking, just trying to be friends with MJ after not seeing her for a long time, kind of like bailing on her or whatever because he had to be Spider-Man. MJ was like, "I'm getting married. Like, you can't fucking just get lunch with him, bro. Like, he's just being nice."
Yeah.
So with that, they meet up at the coffee shop, and then she's like, "Do you love me or do you not?" And like blah blah blah, whatever. And then after the final battle in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, she fucking ditches her wedding to go be with fucking Peter, like in the fucking wedding dress. Like, who the fuck does that? Weirdo. And of course, they have Amazing Spider-Man 3, in which like things don't go out like as well. I forgot what happened in the Amazing Spider-Man 3 for them to like not be in a relationship anymore. Oh, because actually, because the whole Gwen Stacy thing. When fucking...
Because the dumbass decided... Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's fucking... Toby decided to kiss Gwen Stacy in front of Mary Jane while she was looking, and then went on a date with fucking Mary Jane and try to fucking try to propose to her. And MJ was like, "You've literally kissed another girl right in front of my face." And he's like, "Well, that was Spider-Man. That wasn't Peter Parker." Like, he tried to play it off, like, because they were, oh my god, it was just so bad. But like, yeah, like I said, I mean, I know I was supposed to be talking about Mary Jane, but I'm talking about the whole wishy-washy relationship. Yeah, the whole wishy-washy relationship of the whole trilogy. But it proves the point of how the characterization was bad in those movies.
The best version of MJ is the PS4 version.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely.
Making her a reporter was such a fucking great decision.
It really was.
But yeah,
it's like season 1 or 2 of Iris from The Flash.
Yeah, except better.
Actually no. Not even Iris. Freaking like Lois from Superman and Lois.
Yes, yeah, it's true.
Just on par. But yeah, I have nothing else to say. I think we've.
We got. Let's get into that comic accuracy shit.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Here we go. Who's the most comic accurate?
Who's the most comic accurate?
Mm-hmm. The answer,
none.
If I may, is yeah. Well, not even none. Who gives a shit? They all vary in comic accuracy, but people have this weird obsession with comic accuracy when it literally doesn't matter, as long as the characterization is good in the universe that it's in and the story is good. If comic accuracy matters so much, why are people crying that Tony Stark's origin isn't in Vietnam? Why aren't people complaining that Wenwu is Shang-Chi's father when he's not in the comics? Why are people complaining that Mantis is really different from the comics? That Hank Pym didn't create Ultron? That Zemo is completely different? The list goes on. There's so many fucking different changes compared to the comics that people just don't give a shit about. But when it comes to Spider-Man, if it isn't exactly like it is in the comics, then it's fucking garbage. Which is even dumber when you realize that the amount of different comic runs with different versions of Peter Parker, some are more funny, some are more sad, some are more serious, just like the live action versions. Guess what? It's okay to have 3 different versions with different attitudes, suits, origins, whatever the case may be. It's okay to dislike whichever one, and it's even better if you like them all. That's fine if you like them all. It's okay if you don't like one of them, but when it comes to this comic accuracy bullshit, like that shit's gotta go. It's so fucking stupid.
Let me like also add on to the fact that not only the people who complain about that, but also the Spidey community who complains about comic accuracy are just boring people in general. Like, they just want like literally just panels ripped from the comic book onto the on the live action. When that can't even happen, I swear I'm gonna bring it up every single time. Some people were like, "Why doesn't Vision have a green suit?" Like, you want this fucker to have a green suit? This isn't 1967 anymore, you bozo. Like, shut up. It is so stupid. I don't understand.
Bozo.
Yes, I said bozo. 2021. It is just a dumb thing, like, to me. It's like, why do people care about like just these, like, yeah, like it's like you said, if the characterization is great, if the plot is great, then like what does it matter with comic book accuracy? Not everything has to be like straight out of the comics. Like, and that shit is hard to do as well. Like, and it's just the thing is like it would look wacky. Like, it literally would look, it wouldn't look right. So it's just, I don't understand, bro.
Yeah,
like,
it's ridiculous.
They can do like, a little reference, like, for example, like the Electro thing, like how I had Jamie Foxx did it in the trailer with, like, the little crown. That's cool. That's something that that works. But if they were to put that freaking on him, dude, he would look stupid. He would get bullied.
Yeah,
Like, and also like it's just like
get bullied.
He would get bullied. Imagine to be like, dude, like, look at that freaking Party City ass crown on your head, you whack ass villain. Like, the fuck? Like, it's just so lame to me, bro. Like, I don't. And you even said it before, and I'm going to say it right now. Performance over accuracy.
Yep.
Literally. I will literally take that any other day. I don't care. Like, oh my god, it's just I'm done. I'm finished.
Well, yeah, it's basically everything, but we still got to answer the question: who's the best? Who's the best Spider-Man? And we got
all of them.
Yeah,
all of them.
All of them. All of them are they're all great in their own right.
All of them.
Like I said earlier, Toby. Yeah, he has the best movies, but he's a good Spider-Man in his own right. Like we're talking about how he's not the best Spider-Man and he's not the best Peter Parker either. He's probably the worst out of the three. But my God, I still love those movies.
Yeah,
they'll always have a special place in my heart, whether that's nostalgia, whatever it doesn't matter. I love that version. I do. But am I going to be like, just because I love those movies and I grew up with that, does that mean I'm going to be like, he's the best one? No, because it's not true.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like one of those things where it's like, even though sometimes the Raimi trilogy, to me, like, isn't like, it shouldn't have that much praise. I still rank Spider-Man 2 really, really high on my list. So to the point where it's either number 1 or number 2. Spider-Man 2 is always going to be at the top for me.
Same.
Like, it's either because, not even just because of nostalgia, but it's because of that. It's that good of a movie. But like you said, even though the trilogy are like, sometimes like it isn't the best, or the Tobey Maguire's character isn't the best. Those movies are something that we grew up with. We were literally growing up as those movies were being released.
I adore those movies. And I think I talked about it when I was talking about Spider-Man 1. The entire time I was watching Spider-Man 1, I was just smiling the whole time. I love that movie so much.
Yeah, exactly.
It's probably one of, if not my favorite Spider-Man movie. And yet I think Tobey's the weakest out of the three. It's which is it's completely fine.
Yeah, and like we said before, it's fine to have like a preference, but to completely like shit on like an iteration of a character because it's not like its predecessor, it's just completely like dumb to me. And people are gonna be like that when it comes to Batman, Superman, or whatever. But still, I just don't understand why people have to do that. Because, as I said earlier, because everyone watched the Raimi trilogy and they think that Spider-Man is based off the Raimi trilogy because they've seen it, that it completely ruins their expectations of what Spider-Man should be like in the future, which is completely unfair. Because it's like, not everything has to be the exact same. Not everything has to be like, line for line, scene for scene of like the Raimi trilogy or like from the comics. It's just, I feel like people should really learn and mature to like them all equally, because we've never had a bad live action Spider-Man. We've never had.
Yeah, and when it comes to Andrew, I used to hate Andrew's version. Hate him. But in hindsight, that man's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
He's such a good version of the character. And no, his movies aren't the best. But man, is it just delightful to see Andrew Garfield be Spider-Man. Like, I used to see him, besides just not liking his version, I used to see Andrew Garfield and be like, I just don't think he looks like Peter Parker to me. And now I don't fucking believe that at all. I think he's arguably the best one. I think he's fucking phenomenal. But he's an incredible version. And when it comes to Tom, do I think he's the most comic accurate? No, not necessarily. One could make the argument that he's the least comic accurate. Does that make him the worst Spider-Man? Absolutely not.
Nope.
They're all amazing. They're all, no pun intended. They're all great.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. But yeah, I think they're all spectacular, pun intended. But yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, then again, it's like, you've also said it before too. The biggest Spider-Man haters are the biggest Spider-Man fans, and I've loved Spider-Man to the point where I don't care. I just would love to see him on screen, no matter who he's played by, who he's voiced by, and like I just love Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So
I think the majority, or at least I like to think the majority of people enjoy all three of them for what they are, but Twitter's a cesspool.
Twitter and TikTok are just a cesspool of just idiots. And I swear, if I see like one more ratio plus Tobey Maguire is better on like every edit, it's just, oh my God, so annoying.
Yeah, it's always like the most innocent post, and it doesn't matter who it is. It could be about Andrew, it could be about Toby, it could be about Tom, it could be about all three. It doesn't matter. There's always that one guy who's like, Toby's the best Spider-Man.
I know, right? Yeah, it's like
why are
like
you here?
L. Yeah, it's like the one response is L. Tobey Maguire's better. Like, what the hell? Like, shut up, bro.
No one asked.
I know.
But yeah, I think with that being said, I think we can all culminate this entire conversation into the one statement that I think all of us are thinking: Nicholas Hammond is the best Spider-Man. So yeah, So
Fair.
Is that the show?
That is a show. All right. Well, thank you for listening to the Avengers podcast. If you want to follow us, we're at Avengers on Twitter. That's AVENGE nerds, all one word. If you want to follow either one of us, you can reach me at Torrentino on Twitter. And where can they reach you?
They can reach me at itszenith_ on Twitter or youtube.com/itszenith.
Sounds good. We have a Discord. If you'd like to join the conversation there, those will be linked in the show notes. You can check out our link tree for any additional links you may be interested in. You can also review the show and app on Apple Podcasts. If you could leave 5 stars in a review, that would really help us out. Thanks again for listening to the Avengers podcast. We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week with this. It's crazy to say, but we'll see you next week with our review of Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yes.
So see you then.
Sure.